show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Jubes and Co.
But we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
Well, it turns out there might actually be a new war after all if America do indeed attack Iran. There's been an emergency Cobra meeting taking place today. Let me ask you this. If that happens and America do that and they ask us for support, what should our response to that be? And listen to this.
The noes to the left, 137. So the ayes have it, unlock!
That's parliamentarians literally cheering the fact that it's now been decriminalised for a woman to terminate her pregnancy at any time. For shame. And figures out today show that despite making up just 11% of the British population, foreign nationals are more than twice as likely to be responsible for sex crimes. Come on now, it is surely time to face the reality that our immigration system is putting us women at risk. And HS2, I do hope you are not holding your breath for this thing to be ready, because it quite frankly turns out we seem to have no idea what it is going to be, when it's going to be ready, and how much it costs. Business as usual then, I guess. Brilliant. Well, we've got all of that and lots more coming up tonight. And look who I've got keeping me company. Ben Habib, the chairman of the Great British PAC, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, it's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Israeli military say a fresh wave of missiles have been launched from Iran this evening. And these latest strikes come as President Donald Trump refused to say earlier whether the US would strike Iran, saying, I may not. That comes as Iran is set to impose temporary restrictions on internet access in a move which they say is to prevent the enemy from threatening citizens' lives and property. The United States is now working to evacuate US citizens from Israel by arranging flights and cruise ship departures. President Trump's latest intervention comes as Sir Keir Starmer chairs a meeting of the Emergency Cobra Committee to discuss the security situation in the Middle East. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner says the government has deployed jets to the Middle East for the safety of British nationals and the UK national interest. Israel's Defence Minister has claimed that Iran's internal security HQ has been destroyed. Back at home, inflation has eased slightly to 3.4% in May, according to the Office for National Statistics. It rose to a 14-month high of 3.5% in April after a raft of bill increases hit households. Inflation was driven last month by increased food, furniture and household good costs. Chocolate prices in the UK rose at the fastest pace on record. The Chancellor says there's more to do, while Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says the inflation rate is deeply worrying for families. Footage has been released which shows the British sole survivor of the Air India plane crash attending his brother's funeral. Air India have also said today that the sole survivor, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, has been discharged from hospital. He attended the funeral of his brother AJ, who died in the London-bound plane that crashed after takeoff from Ahmedabad on the 12th of June, killing at least 270 people. The chairman of Air India said today that the preliminary findings from the investigation should be available in 30 days, although there were no red flags or maintenance issues with the Boeing Dreamliner. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander has described the HS2 project and its management as no less than a litany of failure. The government has announced that the opening of HS2 will be delayed beyond the planned date of 2033. Heidi Alexander told Parliament there's no reasonable way to deliver the high-speed railway on schedule and within budget. The project has already suffered repeated delays and soaring costs despite being scaled back. Nigel Farage has called for HS2 to be scrapped and for the money to be spent upgrading railway lines across the entirety of the United Kingdom. And the Princess of Wales pulled out of attending Royal Ascot as she continues to find the right balance following her battle with cancer. Princess Catherine is said to be disappointed at not attending the famous social and sporting occasion in Berkshire with her husband and the King and Queen. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, and hello and good evening to each and every single one of you at home tonight. What, ladies and gentlemen, is the weather doing where you are? It's an absolute scorcher here today. I absolutely love it. I hope it's nice and sunshiny wherever you are. I'm keeping you company till 7 o'clock tonight, and alongside me I've got my panel, the former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and alongside him the former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell. Good evening, gents, to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you at home. If you can drag yourself away from your sun lounger, that is, join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. It's working tonight. Many of you got in touch with me during my show last night and said, what's going on, Michelle? I think there was some gremlins, but I assure you it's all fixed now. And you can tweet or you can X me. But look, I seem to remember Donald Trump. He was always talking tough about war, wasn't he? In particular, saying that he wasn't going to start any new ones. Listen.
But we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. And I am proud to be the only president in 70 years who started no new wars.
That was one of the reasons that many people actually liked and supported Donald Trump and went ahead and voted for him. But now there's a big fat question mark over that sentiment and that statement, and whether or not that will prove to be true. I speak, of course, about the situation between Israel and Iran. I've got to say, Donald Trump basically is keeping everybody guessing. But take a listen to what he had to say earlier on today.
I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, what do you make to that, ladies and gents? Of course, he's been talking very tough, hasn't he, when it comes to Iran, telling them essentially that they must surrender. Iran having absolutely none of that, issuing a televised address today, saying basically, if you think that we're going to surrender to anything and anyone, you've got another thing coming, basically. Bill Rammell, now you used to be a former Foreign Office Minister, focusing on the Middle East. I mean, that is a never-ending job when it comes to some of the conflicts going on there. Iran is very much part of your portfolio. What do you think to what's unfolding?
It's extraordinarily concerning. And look, I was a Foreign Office Minister for 4 years, and what I learnt is that in international relations, when you've got conflict, you need predictability about what your intentions are. And Trump is a million light years away from that. So, you know, standing there saying, will I, won't I don't think he knows himself what he's going to do at the moment. And look, I need no persuading about the threat from Iran. It's a militant, theocratic state which has sponsored terrorism within the region and beyond. And it's clearly seeking to get nuclear capability. But I'm really concerned about the actions of Israel. If America steps in behind it, I think that will reinforce those concerns. There's a real question mark about whether it's possible to bomb the Fordow enrichment plant, which is buried deep within a mountain. Even if you did...
Well, you'd need American capability, essentially, to do that, wouldn't you?
But even then, there's a question mark. And even if you did, you can't uninvent the knowledge. And the risk of this is that it massively destabilises the global economy, that, you know, you rip Iran out of the non-proliferation treaty, which at least means you've got international inspectors that can go in and verify what they are doing. And I think it's colossally dangerous. And, you know, if he does back military action, I hope we will stay out of it. One, because we'll make ourselves a target for Iran. Two, look at the polling this morning. By 2 to 1, British people oppose us getting involved.
Indeed. Do you oppose us getting involved? Are you? Where do you sit in those statistics? Ben Habib, your thoughts?
So, I mean, I largely, entirely agree with Bill, actually. So when the 7th of October atrocities took place against Israel, the first thing I called for then, I wrote articles about it saying the connection between Hamas and Iran needs to be recognised. This was the hand of Iran attacking Israel through its proxy Hamas. And of course, we all know Hezbollah is another proxy which it uses in the region, to very great effect. And for years, literally, no one's tackled Iran's connection with Hamas, the way the money flows between Iran and these proxies it uses in the region through Qatar, which needs to be challenged by the West as well. I think it's absolutely right to challenge the leadership in Iran. I think they are a theocratic, dictatorial state which has nothing in common with our values in the West.
What do you mean challenge them? Do you mean try to overthrow the whole regime? What do you mean?
No, I think the tactical strikes, when I saw what I thought were tactical strikes by Israel against their nuclear facilities, their air defences, weakening Iran, therefore, in my view, weakening the connection between Iran and its ability to mobilise its proxies in the region, I thought that was a good thing. I was pleased to see it, actually. But I think it's going too far. Israel is at risk of overplaying its hand. And if America gets drawn in, do not think that with American might you can defeat Iran. Iran stood alone, quite a destabilised regime in 1980 when it had first taken over. In 1979, Khomeini went back, took over Iran. It stood alone for 8 years against Iraq. Iraq then, Saddam Hussein, was backed entirely by the West. They stood alone. Over 1 million people died in that conflict, and Iran was undefeated. You will not defeat Iran. We will get stuck in a war out of which we will not be able to emerge. And like Afghanistan, like Iraq, like the Arab Spring that we encouraged in 2011, we will regret any serious intervention in Iran. We must not do it.
And you say, Bill, actually predictability is what you want in these uncertain times. But couldn't the opposite be true? If you've got a leader and you literally cannot predict what he's going to do, because quite frankly, he might not have figured out himself yet which way he's going to go, isn't that, to some extent, a potential asset in terms of frightening people to think, actually, I better not push him, he might go too far, he might not. When someone is solid, stable, predictable, doesn't that raise the threat on the opposite side?
That's the Trump mantra, as it was coming into his second term. Actually, the evidence after however long it is, 6 months, it doesn't bear it out. He's made a dog's breakfast of Ukraine, which he said he could, the Russia-Ukraine conflict he could resolve on day one. Gaza, he said he'd resolve. We're nowhere near a resolution in Gaza. And this situation, and what's worrying is that Iran hasn't yet got nuclear weapons, but it's got friends who have. And, when you're dealing with potential nuclear conflict, you need predictability, you need certainty, because otherwise there's the real risk of miscalculation and things going horrendously wrong. And look, it's not a thing that everybody buys into, but I still think the best way to resolve the problem with Iran is through an agreement. We had that under the Obama administration, and it was making progress. We had verification on the ground to stop them moving from enrichment for nuclear power to enrichment for nuclear weapons, and Trump pulled out of that in his first term, and I think we're still paying the price for that.
And I've got to say, we talk about paying the prices. We're still paying the prices for the wars like the Iraq War, for example. We'll talk going on about the migration crisis. Be under no illusion, ladies and gents, whether or not we follow America into potential action or not, there will absolutely be consequences here in this country, whether it's, again, increased migration coming from that region as people try to avoid bombs getting dropped on their head, whether it's oil prices spiking and the ramifications of things like that. So we're going to be affected by this.
Well, oil's already gone up over the weekend by 13%. And,
that won't be the end of it.
No. If the Iranians hit the Straits of Hormuz with gas containers and oil containers, this could get completely out of control.
Final thoughts to you, Ben Habib.
Well, remarkably, I completely agree with Bill. I don't think we should get stuck in this war.
Does anyone? Is anyone out there? I'm genuinely interested. Is anyone out there watching all of this unfold? Even Russia have been saying, "Calm yourselves down." I mean, Russia, when they're saying that, you've got to ask yourselves questions. Is there anyone out there among you that's sitting here going, "Actually, yes, proceed, and we should be getting involved"? I'm really interested to hear that perspective, if it exists within the audience at home. Get in touch and tell me after the break. HS2. I really hope that you're not sitting there waiting for this thing, because you'll have a very long way indeed. I've got that coming up. I'll also be speaking about the abortion horrendous situation, if you ask me, that took place last week, and of course the stats out today around foreign offenders and how do I put this nicely without saying "I told you so." In fact, you know what? We'll wait for the conversation and then I might say "I told you so" then.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You have a very nice accent, and I always thought but obviously I'm totally wrong. I've learned something already straight away.
I mean, we've interviewed together on countless occasions. I thought you would have picked up on my English accent.
Oh no, you're just changing it now. You're changing it a bit here.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on for you, mate.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chesney. I think it's amazing that we're talking about a tour next March for a man like you, and that shows you the extent to which you have to be organised to do these things. I thought, like, you're advertising this for this month or next month. Why the need to go so early?
Oh no, it's just to give people plenty of advance notice. You know, these days life comes up very fast, doesn't it? So I'm always touring, Eamon. I've actually got some headline shows coming up next week. I'm in Cardiff and Southampton, but we've just announced this headline tour for next year. So I thought I'd get it out there and let people know in advance. You know.
Good.
And Chesney, just looking at your Instagram now, I mean, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you? Because you've been putting videos out there saying people think I'm a one-hit wonder, but let me tell you, there'll be a lot more songs than just the one that you're most famous for.
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, there are other songs. So looking forward, I've got a new album out right now, Ellie, and it's all been very, very well received. I'm so honoured and grateful for that. And so, yeah, I'll be performing some of this new album out on the road soon. You guys should come.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jubes and Co with me, Michelle Dewberry Ben Habib, and Bill Rammel. I can tell you lots of you are getting in touch about that situation with Iran and Israel. Diane says, be clear, Michelle. It's not Donald Trump starting this war. He didn't start this at all. He potentially may get involved to try and finish one. Kim says, Trump might need to essentially start a war to stop a war. Hamas, the Houthis and Hezbollah think that they can shell Israel, international shipping, etc., without response. Alan says, Michelle, to me it's clear Iran's nuclear facilities must be destroyed beyond repair. Bill says, why are you all talking about regional wars? Who on earth is still backing Iran at this point? point, everyone seems to want a change of regime in Iran. Beth says, for goodness sakes, Bill, she means you, not the previous Bill, Iran, she says, is the enemy of the West. They are responsible, she says, for so many conflicts around the world.
They are, but the question is how you effectively tackle them. And I don't think this is the way.
There you go, Beth. What do you say back to him then? He doesn't disagree with you, our Bill, but he just says, what's your solution to it then? You can get in touch and you can tell us. Lots of you are getting in touch as well, pointing out that actually there's been regime change forced previously in other countries, and you're asking the question, look at the mess that has made. Why would anyone want to repeat those mistakes of the past? I hear you. Keep your thoughts coming in, but look, HS2. I've got to be honest, have you even kept up now with what HS2 even is anymore? I mean, it has been slashed beyond belief from what the original plans and ambitions actually were. Well, we found out now today that the opening of HS2 is indeed going to be delayed beyond the planned date of 2033, which, of course, I think was already a delayed date as well. This surely isn't going to come to a shock to any of you, is it? But let's listen to the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander.
After a decade and a half of Tory timelines planned, then delayed, routes drawn up, then cancelled, budgets calculated, then blown, promises made, then broken, we inherited a project that had lost the trust of the public.
Mistakes were made in the delivery of HS2. As the Secretary of State has noted, costs more than doubled, the project has been repeatedly delayed, and the pandemic completely changed travel patterns, undercutting the assumptions that guided the original plans. It has long been apparent that HS2 was not going according to plan.
Bill Rammell, your thoughts on this absolute mess?
Well, yeah, you'd expect me to say it, but this is a demonstration of the abject failure of the last Tory government. You know, the project, which was originally commissioned in 2009 in the fag end of the last Labour government, was estimated to cost 30 billion. The costs are now looking to be upwards of 100 billion. And, you know, what Heidi Alexander has unearthed today through these investigations, inquiries that have gone on, is that the last government was actually signing contracts it was explicitly advised not to do because they weren't value for money. It set up a project around Euston to redesign Euston Station twice and then completely abandoned it, and that cost about £300 million. And it's a complete dog's breakfast. It actually reminds me of the history of procurement within the Ministry of Defence, constantly changing the specifications, projects constantly being delayed and the cost escalating. Having said that, we've got to make it work. Yes, it's been stripped back, but it can go.
Why? Why do we have to make it work? At what point do we just go, do you know what, this is such a mess, it's such a waste of money that we're going to cut our losses and, you probably just won't be able to get to Birmingham as quick as you might have been able to?
Because there's real benefits in terms of boosting the economy, reducing the north-south divide, increasing connectivity. I mean, where's
the evidence for that? Where's the evidence for boosting the economies of the Midlands as a result of allowing people to escape the Midlands to London as fast as possible?
Well, it's also about capacity. You know, I think the speed has been oversold. It's actually about freeing up track line to increase the capacity on the rail network. And look, why is London such a vibrant city? One of the reasons is much better connectivity than elsewhere in the country. And I think this does have potential. I think some of the appointments the government has now made, the new guy who comes from Transport for London as the new chair of HS2 has really got to get to grips with this. And I think for all the investment, all the time, I think if we just pulled back from it now, it would be a colossal waste. But it's got to be managed effectively, and we need as quickly as possible a revised timeline of when it will come into action. Because originally, you know, in 2009, this was supposed to be delivered by 2026, not 33, and we're now looking beyond 33.
I just don't think you'd get away with some of this stuff in the private sector.
No,
just
you'd be out on your backside.
Nature.
Yeah. When I was in the Brexit Party, Boris Johnson broke ground on HS2. It was all in the planning until he won his general election in 2019. And the Brexit Party then, by then I think the estimates were 50 billion to build the London-Birmingham line. And we were saying, back then, it's going to go to 100 billion. It was clear, and I think it's a complete disaster, the project. They should have started, if they were going to build anything, they should have started and built the bit of the line they've now cancelled, which is between Birmingham, Leeds and Crewe, connecting up the Midlands to have interconnectivity to create a new economic hub in the United Kingdom. If you want to level up the country, I don't agree, Bill, that you give people the ability to leave the Midlands and come to London in double quick time. All you do is create yet another dormitory town. And, you know, we've seen lots of those created because of the connectivity with London, because of the economic pull of London. What we need to do is have a vision for how we see the rest of the country actually pulling itself up by its bootstraps, and London ceasing to be the only economic powerhouse that we seem to have in the country. We've got to do stuff, not spend money, not give people more welfare, more benefits in the north and the deprived areas. Give them the ability to actually start businesses and to make those businesses successful. And that comes from good local infrastructure. At a fraction of the cost of building HS2, we could have fixed every pothole in the country 10 times over, or 5 times over. We could have done that. And yet we pursue this project. And I suppose now, when we're so close to finishing, I know 2033 seems a long way away, but having spent 60, 70 billion on it, maybe you say, let's spend the last 30 billion. It's not the right way to do it in business, by the way. You know, in business, the way that you would approach a project is to say, at every stage, is it worth spending the rest of the money to get the returns that we hope to get? And that analysis needs to be done without emotion. Just because you spent 60 or 70 billion doesn't mean you spend the next 30.
And I think on balance, and that's part of the research that the government's inquiries have done, I think on balance it is worth making that extra investment to get this over the line. But I think there's a deeper question here, and it is actually about our ability as a nation to manage effectively big infrastructure projects.
That's a huge question.
Compare and contrast with France, with Germany. You know, they do this stuff much, much more effectively than
we have lost the ability to build in the United Kingdom.
But why? Why?
Well, it's a multiplicity of different things. Partly because we've offshored so much of our industrial capacity that we don't have the training and the ability to understand industrial processes, which was second nature for us. Partly because of this shoving down the throats of our young tertiary education, giving them making it almost stigmatising not going to university and giving them media study degrees and all that sort of thing, rather than actually training people to build the country that we need built so that we can all have a prosperous future. And it doesn't all come through university education. We have turned our back on making things in the United Kingdom, and we used to be brilliant at it. That was what we were so good at.
As a former higher education minister who spent a lot of time promoting STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and successive governments have done that, but you know, ultimately it's about the choices young people make, but we need more of that.
Neil says, Michelle, people just don't understand. You don't level up by north-south rail links. You make things better for us northerners by east-west links in the north. You're completely right, Neil. He says that
and
Westminster
that was part of the original HS2 plan.
It was, not anymore though. Who's this? Richard says, Michelle, can you just tell Bill it's not just the Tories that can't manage big projects. Tony Blair said the Millennium Dome, which is now the O2 in Greenwich, would cost 350 million, he says, but it actually costs about 1.2 billion. Richard says he's got a rule in life. Whatever government says something will cost, treble it, he says, always, and that will be accurate. One of my viewers as well says, Michelle, don't talk about just scrapping all of this. We've had our countryside in Warwickshire, she said, ripped apart. None of us wanted this, but here we are, and she puts it in capitals. It must now be complete. Well, there you go. Keep your thoughts coming in after the break. I want to talk to you about new data out today showing the conviction rate when it comes to foreign nationals and sex attacks. I'll see you in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Hello, lots of hot sunshine across Italy, and we may spark a few heavy thundery showers in Sicily over the next day or so. There's a weather system sitting away to the west of Portugal, but its weather front could introduce a bit more cloud in Madeira during Friday and Saturday. A few showers inland over Spain, but most of the coasts dry and sunny. There are those heavy showers in southern Italy. Much of the eastern Mediterranean dry, fine and sunny. It'll stay sunny in Barcelona and Nice throughout the weekend. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. We are now in a heat wave, and we're going to continue to see these heat wave conditions for some lingering right through the weekend. It's all because, well, high pressure is across us at the moment, and that's bringing a lot of sunshine for many places, and that's leading to some pretty high temperatures of building. But taking a look as we go through tonight, and there's a bit more cloud across some parts of Scotland, central into northern Scotland as well, with a little bit of drizzly rain across far western parts. Away from this, though, lots of clear skies and lots of dry weather to be had, and temperatures not dropping a huge amount, so it is going to be a particularly warm night for many places, some places holding up in the high teens Celsius. So it is going to be a fine start to the day for most, and across the bulk of England and Wales, a sunny start, just a bit of cloud towards some eastern parts of England first thing. Heading further north and across Northern Ireland and Northern England, lots of sunshine here through the morning. Meanwhile, for Scotland, a cloudier picture here, particularly across central and western parts, a bit of rain at times. Meanwhile, across the north, away from Orkney and Shetland, where there will be a few showers, many parts of northern and eastern Scotland having a bright start. But that cloud across central parts of Scotland does feed a little bit further northwards, so northern and eastern parts turning a bit cloudier as we go through the afternoon. Elsewhere and across the rest of the country, well, it is looking largely sunny, and with that sunshine, temperatures rising a few degrees higher than today. We're looking at highs of around 30 Celsius for some places, so feeling pretty hot indeed. With that hot weather, though, there's the risk of some showers, and these are going to affect some western parts as we go through Friday. Can't rule out a bit of thunder, but most of us will avoid these showers, particularly towards the north and east, where it should stay dry and pretty bright, if not sunny. We have higher temperatures forecast for many as we go into the weekend, particularly across central and eastern parts, peaking around 32 or 33.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists should be cautious on the A9 Dornoch Bridge due to high winds. Road closures are scheduled on the A483 southbound for resurfacing overnight from 8 this evening until 6 tomorrow morning. On the westbound M62 at junction 37, expect a 10-minute delay due to congestion. In Luton, all lanes on the M1 northbound between junction 11 and 11A are closed due to a traffic incident, causing significant delays of an hour. And on the trains, expect major disruptions between Oxenholme Lake District and Lancaster on Avanti West Coast and Northern services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello everybody, how are you? Michelle Dewberry till 7, Ben Habib, the chairman of the Great British PAC, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour minister, are alongside me. Lots of you getting in touch about that vote that took place last night, just after we'd finished the show actually, about that abortion situation, one of the biggest changes to the abortion laws in about 50 years plus in this country. Don't you worry, I shall be getting onto that one before the end of the programme. But for now, statistics came out today. Quite alarming, if you ask me, but also I would also say that it's no surprise, really. It tells us that more than a quarter of sex assaults on women in Britain last year were by foreign nationals. Now, one of the things that people might say, well, you know, oh, a quarter, well, that means that 3/4 were British people, so therefore the problem is white British nationals. Well, no, because that is not to understand the statistics, because, of course, when you look at the population makeup, foreign nationals make up, I think it's about 11% of our population. What do you think is going on here, Ben Habib?
Well, we've completely thrown caution to the wind when it comes to our immigration policy. Immigration for the United Kingdom used to be a mechanism by which you would welcome into the country people from abroad who brought skills, educational levels, investment that we needed in the country, which would be beneficial for them bringing their coming to our country, and for us receiving their contribution. What we've now done in the pursuit, I think, of this notion that all humanity is equal and all humanity must be welcomed with open arms is throw open our borders. We've actually got no borders, either to stop illegal migrants or indeed to vet and control legal migration to the country. And I don't know if we're going to talk about the European Convention of Human Rights, but at the heart of this is the inability, I think, for those that govern us now, hobbled by the Human Rights Act, which embodies the European Convention of Human Rights in our law, to actually make any discernment between different kinds of people. Because they fear that in doing that they will be accused of being racist or xenophobic or whatever. And so, as a result, we have allowed civil society in this country, we've allowed the United Kingdom, our communities across the United Kingdom, to be assaulted by people coming into the country because we have no control. Willfully, we've decided not to have control of those that we let in. And it is a disaster. We are setting aside the nation-state of the United Kingdom on the altar of this false belief in equality. The other thing I just want to say is that the same Human Rights Act, the same European Convention of Human Rights, is effectively putting a protective blanket around criminality. In the pursuit of the protection of criminals' rights, we are setting aside the rights of the victims. And the grooming gang scandal is partly as a result of that, where the victims' rights have been ignored, and it's the criminals who are getting the protection of the criminal justice system on the back of this false ideology. We've got to ditch the European Convention of Human Rights, take the Human Rights Act and tear it up, and re-establish what it means to be a British citizen, what the privileges are that go with being a British citizen, and therefore the protections that you get as a British citizen and civil society in this country, including making clear discernment on who we allow into the country in the first place.
Our Justice Secretary, she was in Strasbourg today talking about the need to reform the ECHR. But what I found really interesting is the spokesperson for Keir Starmer basically came out and said, just to be clear, Labour Party are committed to us remaining in the ECHR no matter what. Well, if that's not a pathetic negotiation position, I don't know what is. If you're going to go to a group of people and say, we need to reform this collective, but guess what, everyone? Even if we don't reform it, we're not going anywhere anyway, what on earth are we expecting to achieve?
Well, look, there is a case for reform. The government's already made clear.
Well, how are we going to push for it if we're going to tell them up front we're not leaving anywhere, irrespective of what we do and don't do?
We're pushing an open door. You know, the chair of the Council of Europe, which oversees the European Convention, has said they're up for reform. 9 European nations have written saying there's a case for reform. But all of those, including some real hardliners like Meloni in Italy, have said, but the ECHR needs to evolve, but we don't want to withdraw from it because it brings some important benefits. But we're making clear, one, that we're going to change the way that our courts interpret the ECHR, particularly Article 2 and Article 8. And Article 8 is the one that...
The right to the family life.
Right to family life, where there have been some totally egregious cases allowing people to stay here. But we're also pushing for change internationally. And Shabana Mahmood in Strasbourg today said, if a foreign national commits a serious crime, they should expect to be deported. And this is the key point. The ECHR, one of the great achievements of post-war politics, it has endured because it evolves. Now it must do so again, and I absolutely agree with that, and that is part of the solution.
Bill Rammell, if some serious sex offender is sitting here watching GB News tonight, he's not going to sit there and go, ooh, I better expect to get deported. He's going to sit there laughing his head off, knowing that he can probably get some form of legal aid, to get some lawyer to tie everyone up in knots, starting crying, as you say, about Article 8, and he's going nowhere.
And why the hell is he here in the first place? Why is that person here in the first place? It's an abrogation of responsibility by allowing these people into the country in the first place.
Because immigration uncontrolled immigration was allowed to get out of control. I absolutely agree. Net migration of almost 1 million people is completely unsustainable, and we have to bring that down. Also, we need greater transparency on the ethnicity and nationality of people who commit crimes.
Definitely do.
The Casey review yesterday made that clear. And why did she make that clear? Because it helps you inform public policy, the decisions that you take as a result of that. The government announced in April that it was going to publish the nationality of all criminal offenders, foreign criminals, and I think that is important. And, you know, things like...
But this is all patching up at the surface, Bill. You said it's endured because it is fit for purpose. I would argue it is not fit for purpose. When it was established, the European Convention, as the name suggests, it is just a set of conventions. It's not a set of laws and legislation that have been passed by democratic parliaments that have thought through the detail of the impacts of what they're doing. It's 17 or 18 conventions, which were just guidelines. And then in 1995, the European Convention of Human Rights was changed, and it was a requirement that every member of the ECHR, member of the convention, would have to adopt the European Court of Human Rights as its supreme judicial body. And that changed everything. And we went from 850 adjudications from the European Court of Human Rights between 1959 and 1995. And since then, we've had 25,000 adjudications. This is a court and a convention which is out of control. And it has undermined what it means to be British. It has undermined what it means to be French, Italian, German. Any member of the European Convention can no longer now exercise their fundamental rights as nation states because the ECHR has set it aside. It is not fit for purpose. We have to tear it up. It has to go. You can't have a foreign court adjudicating British human rights issues.
Whether you're in or without, you will always need a human rights framework to govern the relationship.
Bill, we had that.
Hold on. To govern the relationship between the state and individuals. Yes, you need to reform it.
Create a British Bill of Rights, then.
But we had it. But we don't need any laws.
We would still then have these conflicts. I'll tell you one other element.
Why do we? Did we not have human rights? Did we not have human rights before 1998?
If you pulled out of the ECHR, you would also potentially rip up the Good Friday Agreement.
Let me tell you.
You've started it now, Bill.
Is an integral part of protecting the rights of both communities.
The Good Friday Agreement, this is a tangential argument, but the Good Friday Agreement was ripped up by the Withdrawal Agreement and the Northern Ireland Protocol. Even though it declares in favour of the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, actually the Northern Ireland Protocol rewrote the constitutional settlement for Northern Ireland without the consent of unionists in that part of the United Kingdom. It is a fundamental breach of the Good Friday Agreement. The Good Friday Agreement is knout, and I would not let it.
That's not true. It's still creating the structures that allow the peace to be maintained in a way that for decades it was not.
The Good Friday Agreement produced defeat when we had victory. We had defeated the wretched IRA terrorist group. We had them on the back foot.
You were not in favour of the Good Friday Agreement?
I was not in favour of the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, that speaks volumes.
And I certainly would not now stay in the ECHR because of the fine print of the Good Friday Agreement.
The Good Friday Agreement, which brought killing and maiming to an end.
It didn't. It was coming to it.
Look at the statistics.
It was coming to an end.
What's happened as a result of it?
What we've done in Northern Ireland is an absolute travesty. We have forgiven terrorists, and again we've thrown victims under a bus. We had the IRA beaten.
Northern Ireland, by and large, has peace, whereas for decades it did not.
Well, are you in Northern Ireland? What do you think to the conversation that you are hearing? Get in touch, join the conversation in all the usual ways. I'll bring you into the conversation after the break. We talk about human rights all the time, but surely it should be a two-way thing, because if you don't respect the human rights of others, why should you be able to go to whichever court in the land and start crying and claiming your own human rights? I've never understood that. I'll see you in 2 where we'll be talking about the horrendous vote last night about abortion.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewberry, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, Michelle Dewberry, Bill Rammell, Ben Habib. We do like a little set to on Jubes and Co. It's nice, isn't it, to be passionate about issues. You can join the conversation in all the usual ways. Angela says, Michelle, the government and previous governments should be held to account for not protecting the women of this country. Hear, hear, Angela. Did you see the state of what happened outside of, I think it was Liverpool train station the other day? If you're on Twitter and you missed it, you can look at it on there. Some guy essentially tried to kidnap a woman in broad daylight, didn't actually see what he'd done wrong. Thankfully, he is behind bars, but I can tell you I completely agree with that. Lots and lots of you are getting in touch with me about this debate that I want to have with you right now. Many of you will remember last night, Parliament, of course, were voting on whether or not to essentially decriminalise the act of abortion when a woman takes it upon herself to do that at any point up until birth. Well, listen, this was the outcome of that vote.
I implore colleagues not to lose sight of the moral imperative here, namely vulnerable women being dragged from hospital bed to police cell on suspicion of ending their own pregnancies. This is urgent. We know multiple women are still in the system awaiting a decision, accused of breaking this law. They cannot afford to wait. We have, Madam Deputy Speaker, a once-in-a-lifetime generation, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to put an end to this in a simple and secure manner. This is the right change at the right time. I implore colleagues who want to protect women and girls and abortion services to vote for new Clause 1.
Well, they did indeed then take that vote, and it absolutely smashed through. It had a majority of 242 votes. So now it is being decriminalised. A woman can literally terminate her own pregnancy up until essentially the point of birth with no criminal repercussions. I mean, Ben Habib, your thoughts?
Well, it's the legalisation of murder. That woman, the MP, I don't know what her name is, but she was talking about protecting vulnerable women. For goodness sake, who's standing up for the vulnerable child in a woman's womb? The whole subject of abortion is something that has to be treated very, very carefully. But I can tell you one thing for certain. You'd have to be some kind of serious lunatic to think that you could abort a child in any scientific way safely from the... when I say safely, the debate is, are you killing a human being? And it may be possible to make the case that very early on in a pregnancy you're not. There is no argument that you're not killing a human being later on in pregnancy. There can be no argument that you're actually willfully putting to death a vulnerable infant. And for her to talk about the need to protect vulnerable women at the expense of the most vulnerable in our society, an unborn child, is just beyond me. And she will justify her position on the altar of uber-liberalism. And liberalism has gone too far. We need to reacquaint ourselves with responsibility, with obligations, with duty, which constrain liberalism, but allow families, communities and nation-states to actually exist in some kind of functional moral way. There is nothing morally upright about killing a baby at 9 months.
I want to show you, actually, the reaction when that vote actually was read out. Watch.
The noes to the left, 137. So the ayes have it, unlock!
To be quite a lot of glee in that chamber, and looking at social media afterwards, I was astonished at how many MPs had actually taken to Twitter, X, whatever you call it, to say that they was, quote, proud of voting for this amendment and making that happen. It sickens me, I can't lie, it sickens me. I am pro-choice, and I know that even that will upset people, but there has to be limits. We've got those limits, 24 weeks. Those limits, of course, still remain, so the health professionals can get prosecuted. This is about decriminalising the woman. Your thoughts, Bill?
I've always supported a woman's right to choose, and I consistently voted for the 24-week term limit of when an abortion can take place. It really concerns me, however, that I think the vote last night breaches that 24-week limit. If a woman now, without the assistance of a doctor, has an abortion, she can do it up to 9 months, and I think that's a huge
without
concern.
Legal repercussion. Let me just play you a clip from another MP as well, because the way that this all went through, ladies and gents, take a listen.
To rewrite a profound boundary in British law that protects the unborn child with 2 hours of debate on a Tuesday afternoon. That is not responsible lawmaking, it is procedural ambush.
Procedural ambush. That's quite strong words there. What do you think?
And she's absolutely right, whoever that MP was.
Julia Lopez.
Two hours debate. Go back to David Steele's private members bill that brought in the Abortion Act originally, and it went through months of debate and scrutiny. And every subsequent change to the abortion laws have similarly gone through that detailed process of scrutiny and interrogation. To have this debated and decided on in just 2 hours, I think is fundamentally wrong. And the scale of the vote as well. I did not expect a 242 majority.
The scale of the vote tells us something about the sickness in Parliament. That we can have parliamentarians who would support the murdering of babies. That's what they've just voted for in our Parliament. Let's not under-egg this. Let's not try and gloss over it. What we have done in Parliament yesterday is legalise the murdering of babies, the most vulnerable in society.
But Ben, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're opposed to abortion.
No, I know. I can have the debate. I know people who are opposed to it.
So you're in favour of 24 weeks?
I'm not in... it's a very delicate subject.
It is.
And I might get my head round 24 weeks. I can't begin to get my head round what happened in Parliament yesterday.
And I agree with you on that.
I can't, and I'm really, really shocked, actually, that it went through so quickly. Carla Denier, she tweeted out, I had an abortion in my 20s. I know how important it is that women have control over our bodies and don't face criminalisation for our choices. I'm so glad, she says, to be one of 379 MPs who successfully voted to decriminalise abortion. It is a historic vote to protect a woman's right to choose. Now, I've got to say, obviously, the majority of parliamentarians supported this, but how have we got to a situation where we have put all women into a single bucket and made out that they are these I don't know, these kind of innocent, sensitive, vulnerable, deeply distressed women that would never make this choice unless they were absolutely forced into it and they are so distressed. Absolute nonsense. Some women are actually pretty damn disgraceful, really, in the way that they choose to behave. They lie and they manipulate and they deceive. And some women actually do indeed deserve to be in prison because you have up until 24 weeks in order to make your own choice about your own body if that is the camp that you are in. I completely respect that. And yes, I know some women don't realise that they perhaps have been pregnant until quite a few weeks later. You have lots of choice. You have lots of options. You shouldn't be giving women a free pass to deliberately lie and to deliberately deceive in this way to cause deliberate harm and actual death to their own child. I think it is so shameful. I think it's so appalling. I think it is a stain on Britain. And lots of men also, by the way, get in touch and say that they don't support abortion at any point. And actually, it's really fascinating because you find that often those same men don't also support the wearing of condoms. I mean, make of that what you actually will. That's a conversation for a different day and perhaps not one for tea time. But to all of these MPs that are gloating about the success that they've had on this vote, I would say to you, check yourselves. Actually look in the mirror and check yourselves because you are out of touch with the British public. I promise you that. It's all I've got time for. Hold your thoughts. We'll have to do it another day. Have a good night, everyone. See you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. We are now in a heat wave and we're going to continue to see these heat wave conditions for some lingering right through the weekend. It's all because, well, high pressure is across us at the moment and that's bringing a lot of sunshine for many places and that's leading to some pretty high temperatures of building. But taking a look as we go through tonight, and there's a bit more cloud across some parts of Scotland, central into northern Scotland as well, with a little bit of drizzly rain across far western parts. Away from this though, lots of clear skies and lots of dry weather to be had, and temperatures not dropping a huge amount, so it is going to be a particularly warm night for many places, some places holding up in the high teens Celsius. So it is going to be a fine start to the day for most, and across the bulk of England and Wales a sunny start, just a bit of cloud towards some eastern parts of England first thing. Heading further north and across Northern Ireland and Northern England, lots of sunshine here through the morning. Meanwhile, for Scotland, a cloudier picture here, particularly across central and western parts, a bit of rain at times. Meanwhile, across the north, away from Orkney and Shetland, where there will be a few showers, many parts of northern and eastern Scotland having a bright start. But that cloud across central parts of Scotland does feed a little bit further northwards, so northern and eastern parts turning a bit cloudier as we go through the afternoon. Elsewhere and across the rest of the country, well, it is looking largely sunny, and with that sunshine, temperatures rising a few degrees higher than today. We're looking at highs of around 30 Celsius for some places, so feeling pretty hot indeed. With that hot weather, though, there's the risk of some showers, and these are going to affect some western parts as we go through Friday. Can't rule out a bit of thunder, but most of us will avoid these showers, particularly towards the north and east, where it should stay dry and pretty bright, if not sunny. We have higher temperatures forecast for many as we go into the weekend, particularly across central and eastern parts, peaking around 32 or 33.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24. Sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic this evening faces significant delays. The M74 is restricted northbound due to a broken down vehicle between junction 15 and 14. Diversions are advised. The A483 southbound at Rosslana-Krugog is closed for maintenance from 8 this evening until 6 tomorrow morning. In Luton, a collision on M1 northbound between junction 11 and 11A is causing hour-long delays, with 2 of 4 lanes closed. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Oxenholme Lake District, Lancaster and various destinations, causing inconvenience for commuters. Plan accordingly. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra